listening experience. Trendsetters. Waterberg FM. Go with the flow.
Yeah, good day. We are on Waterberg Radio. Yes, we will go with the flow for the grade 11s. It is a great pleasure that I'm greeting you all the grade 11s who are doing economics and the parents that will be listening to Waterberg Radio for this radio lesson. It is of paramount importance that you should know that I'm Charles Letsoalo from Morakolo Secondary School, and I'll be offering you economics as a subject. Why today we want to offer you economics is because we are preparing the learners to write their final exam. And in the guideline, it shows without doubt that most of the topics will be covered. But it is very important for the learners to know the following topics that we'll also be dealing with. Today's topic will be based on factors of production. That was done in term 1. So it is important that you grade 11 learners, as we proceed, you should have a pen to take notes, because in every session I'll also be asking questions so that you can be clarified. Now it goes. Factors of production. As you know that we cannot produce anything on earth without using the 4 factors of production. One of the factors of production which is key, and we're going to discuss it, is natural resources. Most of you call it land. But natural resources, obviously, we say is a gift of nature. And it also, as a gift of nature, its supply is limited. In other words, you'll never find a natural resources multiplying. So it will also only be limited. So let us give the characteristics of natural resources. It's a gift of nature. In other words, natural resources are not man-made, are a gift of nature. And being gift of nature, it's not possible for one to carry and say that is owning that. But at the same time, they are unevenly distributed over the surface of the earth, or unevenly distributed. Why are we saying they are unevenly distributed? In other words, as we all aware in South Africa that when you want gold, you'll only get it in Gauteng. And then, but here in Limpopo, you cannot get gold. But if it was evenly distributed, it means the whole of the world will have equal supply of gold. Now, we say that the supply of land or natural resources is limited. In other words, it cannot expand. That is the third characteristic. The supply is limited. In other words, the land will never get pregnant and multiply and give birth to another land. As it is, it does not increase, it is limited. So I asked some of the learners to say, do you really eat a cow? They say, yes, we eat a cow. I said, no, we don't eat a cow. We eat a meat after it has been cooked. So that is one of the characteristics of natural resources. Then it will be, before we can use natural resources, we need to process them. They need to be processed before we can use them. The fifth characteristic is that it can be exhausted or destroyed. In other words, if I take gold out of the ground, or I take any mineral out of the ground, that ground where I took it, it will never come back again. So that is why we say they can get exhausted, they can get finished, or they can also be destroyed. Like trees can be cut, and from there we might not have something that will wash or clean the air that we breathe in. The other one is that it has got also a strategic value. When we say it has got strategic value, in other words, we are saying South Africa as it is cannot survive without these natural resources, or anywhere in the world, no one can survive without natural resources. So they are very important. Whilst I'm saying they are very important, can we now, let me summarize the characteristics. You said the characteristics of natural resources is one, gift of nature. In other words, natural resources are a gift of nature. They are unevenly distributed. Further than that, the supply is limited. The fourth one is need to be processed before they can be used. And then natural resources can be exhausted or destroyed. The last one is can have strategic value. Now let's look at the importance of natural resources. One is that they provide means for all living organisms like people, animals. For us to survive, we need natural resources. That is why we say natural resources are important, because they give us life. The air we breathe, the water we drink come from natural resources. And then further than that, natural resources, the importance of natural resources is that they enrich people. They enrich people's lives and provide scenic beauty. In other words, we can use natural resources as another thing that can attract the tourist to come to our area. So that is why we say that they've got scenic beauty. And then they form basis of production. So for every product that we want to produce, we need natural resources. The first thing, when you build an industry, you need land, and land is a natural resource. And then on that building, you cannot produce something on air, you will only produce it on land. So that is why we say that they form the basis of production. And this makes secondary industries and even tertiary industries to be sustainable because of the contribution that the primary sector is making. Further than that, another important is that it provides raw materials to secondary industry. For the secondary industry, that is the manufacturing, for them to manufacture any product, they need to have raw materials. And those raw materials, normally they come from nature. Think of the clothes that you are wearing, think of the shoes that you are wearing. Some come from nature, or most of them, they come from nature. And then the other one is that the natural resources make creation of jobs very possible. So they give job opportunities. How? Firstly is that if there is a mine, it should be mined on natural resource. And that mine will employ a lot of people. And then they'll extract raw materials. And for that extraction, these raw materials need to be processed. And who will process them? The secondary industry. And that in itself, it will need workers. That is why we're saying the importance of natural resources is that it creates job opportunities. And then another thing is that some of the natural resources that we have, we sell them. And that is why we'll say one of the importance of natural resources is that they contribute to the gross domestic product. In other words, they contribute to the GDP of our country. Now, this in summary is the importance of natural resources. They provide means for the living, and then they enrich people's lives. They form the basis of production. They provide raw material to secondary industries to process, Natural resources also create job opportunities. Further than that, they contribute to the GDP. And once the GDP grows, it means that our economy is growing. So, but everything that, every natural resource, as we use it, it should be remunerated, it should be paid. So what is the payment for remuneration for the natural resource? We are agreeing that that will be, I see some of the learners know the answer. The answer is rent. Now, what is rent? Rent is a payment for the use of natural resources. And that in itself, rent is determined by demand and supply. For us to be able to pay, to charge people, or to price our rent or price our natural resources, there should be demand. And if the demand is very high and the supply of land is limited, it means rent will be high. So even if you can consider it on a graph, that is why, because land is limited, we will put the demand curve in a vertical form. And then, the supply curve, the supply of natural resources will be vertical, whilst the demand will flow around that vertical line. Because if the demand increases and the land doesn't increase, the prices of rent will escalate or will grow up, will be high. Land is scarce, so if it is scarce, then the rent will be high. Thank you for that. That was, in short, natural resources as a factor of production. Now let's proceed now to another factor of production, which is labor. And we all know that labor, once you talk about labor, we talk about human resource. Labor is an employee, a worker, and for him to work, he needs to use his mind, his physique, his energy. That is what can define labor. What is labor? Is the use of mental and physical effort to produce goods and services. Obviously, they do that. They provide that mental and physical effort to produce goods and services so that they can be rewarded. I am now here working. I should also be rewarded. And that reward will be an income. But labor, we know very well that it will be rewarded with wages or salary. We all know what is wages, what is salary. If you don't know, wages is a weekly payment or fortnightly payment, but salary is a monthly payment. So let's get to labor. The characteristics of labor are as follows. 1, labor can be classified into various categories. Labor can be classified in various categories. 1 is that we have got unskilled labor. This type of a labor is one who has not attended school. There is no school. So obviously, what will this person do as a worker? He will only provide physical effort. In other words, he will use his power, his physical effort to produce goods and services or to be employed. The other one is the semi-skilled. This one, semi-skilled, also they've got a low level of schooling. You might find that this person has been trained just to do manual work, to work with his hands, to work with machinery and other things. And we'll also have a skilled worker. A skilled worker, normally these are people with high level of schooling. They might have gone to FET to acquire skills. So these type of workers, we call them skilled workers. And then from there we'll have Professionals. The professionals are people that have completed their degree, or they have completed a qualification that is recognized as a profession. So these are the categories of workers. We have got a white collar, high collar, which I call them professionals. We have got unskilled labor, semi-skilled labor, and skilled labor. That is the first characteristic. The first characteristic, you need to categorize the labor or classify the labor. And then the second one is labor cannot be separated from the worker. So meaning that cannot be performed by the other person. That work must be performed by the person who is employed. You cannot use the energy or the physique of somebody to come and do the job and then you leave that person there. So it cannot be separated. The third one, the demand for labor is derived demand. So why we say it's a derived demand is because if there is demand, obviously if the demand grows, the more labor will be needed. If there was no demand, we will not be employing people. So we need labor so that they can produce goods and services to satisfy the need or the demand of the consumers. And labor also is fairly immobile. We know that what is mobile? Mobile is to move. But once you are a labor, you become immobile because you have got this fear or you become reluctant to move to another. Like for instance, you find many teachers, they've started teaching and then they want to go to pension whilst they are also teaching. So a teacher may not say, no, there is a mine somewhere else, let me go and work there. That is why we say teachers are immobile. And the supply cannot be increased over time. Another characteristic, we say the supply of labor cannot be increased over time. What does that imply? It means that if you want to get more workers, you need to train them. They need to go to school, as we are also teaching learners that in the future they will become labor. So the supply of labor cannot be increased over time because we need education, and education cannot be offered in one day or in an hour. It's a process. So those are some of the characteristics of labor. Now I want us to quickly go to the importance of labor. Remember that once we earn an income, that income we earn, it contributes to gross national product or the gross national income. So income earned by labor contribute even over 46% to gross national product. And also income earned is the main source to the household. For household to survive, for household to have food at home, they need a source of income. So workers will bring that source that will bring income to the household. Then the household will be able to survive and also their per capita will also grow. No production can take place without labor. That is correct. There is no any product on earth that can be produced without using labor. Even if you can build the robots, those robots must be built by labor. Even if the robots can produce a product, but that product should have went through the hands of a labor. So labor is the key to production. No product can be produced without labor. If combined with other factors of production, labor can produce essential goods and services. It is very important that we should understand labor is one factor of production. So for labor to produce a product, we need to combine it with land or natural resources. Because labor by himself, he cannot work on the sky, need to work on the land. And then the other thing is that we need to combine it with capital. We need to have an industry that has been built with money for labor to work. And then you need also an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur, we know very well that is part of that process that combine these other three factors of production so that they can produce goods and services. Another important aspect about the importance of labor is the female contribution. Female employment increased the supply of labor. And once there is an increase in the supply of labor, it means this will contribute to the GDP. So our GDP will grow. So as more female workers are employed, that also, because they've got skills and knowledge, it contributes to the gross domestic product. That's the importance of labor. We say income earned contribute over 46% to GNP. Income earned is the main source to the household. And then thirdly, no production can take place without labor. So it means labor is very important in producing goods and services. So for production to take place, labor can be combined with other three factors of production. And then the other one is the contribution of female workers or employees, whom they increase the supply of labor, and that in itself expand contribution to GDP. Now, no one works for nothing. So what did we say is the remuneration for labor? Obviously, I said the remuneration of labor is wages or salary. If you are paid weekly, then you'll get wages. If you are paid monthly, you'll get salary. So salary is a monthly payment. Now, we spoke about two factors of production. Now let's move quickly to the third factor of production, which is capital. So, ladies and gentlemen, you should, as learners, you should try to grab these things because it's important. The guideline for this year says that one of these topics will become an essay. It can be an entrepreneurship, it can be capital, it can be natural resources or labor. But just focus on what we are doing here at Waterberg Radio. Now, let's talk about capital. We all know that capital is those goods. It can be a machine, goods that we use to produce other goods with. Capital is goods that are used to produce other goods with, or it can be money invested on goods that are going to produce goods that we normally use. Those goods can be equipment or machinery, it can be buildings. Those are capital. Even humans are capital. But in this case, we are talking about the goods, we are not talking about the humans. Classification of capital. In capital, we have got money capital, that is the money we use to buy capital goods with. And then we have got financial capital, those are paper assets like shares sold to the public. And we'll also have real capital. Real capital when you talk about a real thing, then we're talking about here actual tools and machinery that were bought. If I buy a machine to produce another good, that will become a real capital. But real capital is divided into two categories, that is fixed capital and working capital. Fixed capital, these are used, or these are tools or capital that can be used more than once. You can use it this day or even next week using the same thing. That is a fixed capital. But working capital or floating capital are used once in the production process, and that can be the raw materials. At home, you have got a pot. That pot, we can say, is a fixed capital because we are still going to use it many times. If you were selling the porridge, then meal will be a raw material, because once you use that meal and it gets finished, you won't use and eat again tomorrow. So that meal or raw materials are part of the working capital, but machinery and equipment are fixed capital. What are the characteristics? Let's get to the characteristics of capital. I know some of you know them. One is that capital is man-made. If we say capital is man-made, in other words, it was not a gift of nature like natural resources. Capital is man-made, it was made by people. Like the buildings, the industries that we see around, these were built by people. That is why we say capital is man-made. And the other thing with capital is that once you see anything that is capital, you must know that that thing has got ownership. So it is owned. Capital can be owned. So capital belongs to someone, and you cannot claim it unless you purchase it or you created it. The other characteristic is that has limited lifespan. Capital has got limited lifespan. What does that mean? It means that if you buy, for instance, a machine, it won't last you forever. It will only work for certain years, depreciated or become outdated. So that is why we say it has a limited lifespan. Now, capital formation requires sacrifice. For us to have capital goods, somebody must have sacrificed his consumer goods. He must have sacrificed the money that he should have used or she should have used for consumption of goods and services. Like, for instance, if a person buy a machinery, that machinery he has sacrificed, saved money towards that. Now, capital also, it is expensive. It commands price. Capital normally is expensive. You can just imagine the capital of Medupi power station, the capital of electrical companies that are there. They have used billions. Some have used trillions of rands to be built. That is why there is no any individual in South Africa that can build an electrical company. There is no any rich person who is richer than the value of Eskom. Eskom is worth trillions of rands, and in South Africa we only have millionaires, not billionaires. Now, we are saying capital is expensive. So for you to formulate capital, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Now, we spoke about characteristics of capital. We said that they are man-made, and then they are owned, they've got limited lifespan, and then capital formation, it also requires sacrifice. And then the fifth one is that capital is very expensive. Now, the importance of capital. One is that increase efficiency of labor. For labor to be productive, you can see that even at Waterberg radio, they've got machinery, they've got laptops, they've got those are equipments that they use, and we call them capital goods. Now, for them to be productive, for us to love the radio, is because they are using capital goods. So that is why here the important is that it increases efficiency of labor. So it means that it improves the manual labor force. Now, number two is that capital increase efficiency of production. Without capital, we'll not be able to produce as much as we want. Technology will not be there. And then the other one is that capital formation contribute to economic growth. Once we build industries in South Africa, we build more industries, more infrastructure, then South Africa will be good, our economy will start to grow. Even now during COVID-19, we need to make sure that infrastructure is built so that unemployment, which is now very high, and also the negative economic growth that we are facing should now start to be positive so that it can create more job opportunities. Those are the importance of capital. But in capital, you should know that we have got capital widening and capital deepening. Capital widening simply means when stock or capital stock increases with the number of workers. If I've got 10 workers with 5 spades or 5 items that they are going to use, and I increase that number, I increase the number to 20, then it means that even the things that I'm using, the resources that I'm using, they should grow again. If it was 5, then it should go to 10. If labor was 10, it should go to 20. In that way, then we'll say is capital widening. But we have got also capital deepening. Here, the stock increases more than the labor rate. In other words, you find that a person is buying more machinery but employing less people. So that is capital deepening. Now, the question is, what is the remuneration for capital? Simply, the remuneration for capital is interest. And we all know that once you use capital or you invest on an industry, that money you borrowed should be paid back, and it shall be paid back with interest. So that is it with capital as one factor of production. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to talk about the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur, ladies and gentlemen, we all know that is someone that has got the skill to sacrifice, and also has got the knowledge and to research the environment. Researching the environment, what does he want to do with that research? He research or she research the environment so that she can see an opportunity. So what is an entrepreneur? We say that an entrepreneur is someone that will search the environment for business opportunity. Someone that find an open place and say, no, here there is an opportunity to start a business. And then an entrepreneur is someone that brings together the factors of production. In other words, because he's already there or she's already there as a factor of production entrepreneur, he will bring labor, capital, and natural resources so that they can work together towards one common goal of producing a product. Entrepreneur is someone that take a risk to start and finance a new business. To satisfy, the main purpose here is to satisfy the needs of consumers by combining those factors of production. Now, what are the characteristics or the personalities that we can see from a person to say, no, this is a good entrepreneur in the making. Even at school, you have seen such people. Right? Learners, within your school, you have seen someone with strong driving force, with high energy. So this person with high energy can become an entrepreneur. One of the characteristics or personality is that the entrepreneur must have high energy and strong driving force. The other one is high level of creativity and innovation. Now, to be creative is to come up with new idea. Yeah, I remember one day I said, no, let me start to make a toothbrush that will brush my teeth, and then which will use a battery. And later on, when we try to present that, then people started to say, no, this was not the first, we were not the first people to come up with this idea. The idea was already there. So we say that if you are an entrepreneur, you should have high level of creativity and innovation. Innovation meaning that to come up with new ideas or to create something new. Good people skills, that is another characteristic. You must have good people skills. That means you need to be able to interact very well with people. There are some people, when you meet them, they will show you, or they will pull their nose, and in that way that this person is not a good entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur is someone that have got good people skills, the person that can be able to work with people. I've seen such skills when I come to Waterberg Radio. The first thing, I found a big smile from one of the presenters once she has seen me, and she said, no, then that is a good leadership or good entrepreneurship. The other thing is that if you are an entrepreneur, you must have the will to take a calculated risk. When you say you are taking a calculated risk, that implies that you are going to calculate if you are going to make profit or you are going to make a loss. And remember, if you start a business, you are risking your money, you are risking your time, you are risking your efforts, you are risking your family joy, you are risking. So now you must take a calculated risk. You must calculate first before you take a business to say, no, if I do this, this will bring me a good return. The aim of every entrepreneur is to make profit. Strong desire to be in control. Normally around us, there are people that want to control us. And that desire shows that this person can become an entrepreneur. Another characteristic is that of the high level of self-confidence. You cannot just start business when you don't have confidence, you don't trust yourself. A person that trusts himself or herself can become a good entrepreneur. And how do you start a business without good communication skill? That is another characteristic or personality that you must have as an entrepreneur. Good communication skills. So in short, the characteristics: strong driving force and high energy, high level of creativity and innovation. 3, good people skills. 4, the will to take calculated risk. 5, strong desire to be in control. High level of self-confidence. Lastly, good communication skills. I hope those characteristics will help you during your final exam, ladies and gentlemen. Grade 11, the importance of this factor of production as an entrepreneur. What are the importance? The first important, as I said, he or she as an entrepreneur will combine factors of production. Which factors of production? Entrepreneurship, labor force, natural resources, and also capital. And remember, these need to work together so that we can be able to create production, goods and services. Now, the second important is that it creates job opportunities. Without the entrepreneur, there won't be industries, there won't be mines, there won't be firms, there won't be shops. So for them to, these entrepreneurs, for them to create that, they have employed many people to come and work for them. So that is why we say entrepreneur create job opportunities. It is true, many people are working for businesses that we know in South Africa or the industries. The third important is that entrepreneur build wealth to the economy or wealth to the country. For South Africa to be known in the future as a developed country, as now we call it a developing country, because we still having some areas that are not meeting the standard as per the United Nations. We need to build more industries, even move from industries, but go to the sector of service sector, which is tourism and others, and depend on that. And like South Africa, we depend on primary sector. So if we build more industries, our economy will grow, and then we'll have more wealth as a country. Then the other one is that entrepreneurs are there earmarking to satisfy the needs and wants of consumers. In other words, they provide the consumers with goods and services so that they can be satisfied. Entrepreneur also serves as a market. Remember that they buy and also they sell. So entrepreneur serves as a market and makes production a reality. If you are an entrepreneur, you must know that one of the importance that you are going to do is to make production a reality. Like for instance, some of the things that you created will become real and people will be able to use that. Now, the other importance that it contributes to economic growth. For our economy to grow, we need entrepreneurship. So South Africa, learners of South Africa, those that are doing grade 11, this COVID-19 should not be a challenge, but it should be an encouragement for you to say you want to make a footprint in South Africa by creating job opportunities, by starting your own businesses. And if you start your own business, one day you shall be on top of the people that we call millionaires. And that's exactly everyone who should strive for. Now, entrepreneur, we say an entrepreneur should be remunerated. How are we going to remunerate entrepreneur? The entrepreneur is remunerated with a profit. This person will make a gross profit. What is gross profit? Gross profit is sales minus cost. That will be the gross profit. But you need also to have net profit. What is the difference between gross profit and net profit? Gross profit is sales minus cost, and the net profit is that you have already subtracted the expenses or deducted the expenses from the gross profit. Then you will have a net profit. And that is exactly how we should do it. Ladies and gentlemen, in summary, today we dealt with natural resources. You still remember the characteristics? Can you give me at least 2 or 3 of them? I can imagine some of you are getting them right, which is a good thing. Some of you are really lost. What are natural resources? we said that natural resource is a gift of nature. As you said, it's a gift of nature. It's also a characteristics. They are unevenly distributed. And then we went on to talk about the labor. What is labor? Probably we all know that labor, to be a labor, you need to use your mental and physical effort to produce goods and services for a reward. And the characteristics, we said we classify them into categories. Labor can be classified into various categories, which is unskilled labor, semi-skilled labor, manual work, skilled labor, and white collar or high collar level, which is professional. And then another characteristic is that labor cannot be separated from the worker. Demand for labor is derived demand. Labor is fairly immobile. Now, we recently spoke about capital today. What is capital? We said that those are goods that are used to produce other goods, or that is money invested in buying equipment and machinery to produce other goods. And then, ladies and gentlemen, lastly, that was the entrepreneur. And we outlined various characteristics of an entrepreneur and their importance. And I'm quite positive that for the lesson of today, you learners have benefited. We'll come back next time with another topics that will help you. But earmark this entrepreneurship as one of your possible questions in the essay.